Welcome back, everybody. It's your boy Ralph. We're here at the process. We're talking about fantasy football. It's Friday night. We're just going to get into it. Oh, so excited to be talking about week two, reviewing week one. How did it feel? Did it hurt? Show me on the doll where he touched you. How did we do after week one? Hopefully, everybody's fantasy week was fantastic. But either way, we're here to review it, get over it, get on because we've already got week two. It's Friday night, y'all, so we're talking some football here. Before we get too far into it, welcome to our first time offenders, our new listeners. We're excited to have you. This is Tiger Bomb Sports Audio Entertainment's The Process. That's the whole point, guys. We follow the process from beginning to end. We draft well, we play fantasy football well. Seasonal might get boring because we do that, so we switch to DFS and we try to maintain our dominance over there. At this point, any and all comers will take you in any and all formats. This is the best free information available, in my opinion. If you are a repeat offender, you've been listening already. I love a hard head. Welcome back. For the new guys, though, let's get it established before we get on with our show. Where can you find us? Couple of places: www.tigerbomb.com. That is our website. Tiger Bomb has a host of podcasts. You could listen to The Process. There's also The Heart of the Order if you're into baseball, or if you like true crime or NASCAR, we've got something for you. So you can check that out there. The Process has its own page. Click on the Process page. You can listen to this podcast there. You can watch this podcast there. This podcast is available on YouTube. Search for Tiger Bomb Sports Audio Entertainment. Click it, baby. Like and subscribe. You can do the same thing if you're listening on an app that you like to listen to your podcast on: Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever. Just search for Tiger Bomb Sports Audio Entertainment. It'll come up. Like and subscribe. You can catch all the episodes of The Process and everything else too. In addition to that, if you are a social media person, you can find The Process on Facebook and on Twitter the same way, at the process tbsae.com, at the process tbsae.com. That's it, guys. That's how we can stay involved. And so, before we hop into everything that we have for this week and get into our normal show, bit of a longer intro because we are going to review so much of what we saw in week one. First of all, we got to have a come to Jesus moment. We got to talk about the results, my results from the fantasy football DFS aspect. Seasonal, we crushed it. Seasonal didn't win across the board. Had a couple of two leagues in particular where explainable things like I played Akers over Henderson, and opposite guy had the Bills defense go off, and according to some other things. So all pretty explainable with the two losses, but mostly a lot of dominance. Love to see most points week one in your league. That means we did our job. That means the process is already onto the right path when right out of the gate, nailing so much of what we saw after a summer's analysis of who will play what role. This isn't so much about isolating certain plays or players. It's like understanding the systems, understanding how they match up versus the other systems, defensive and offensively, and being able to exploit that on a weekly basis. That being said, the DFS side of things wasn't as pretty. We did return some money back, but you got to go green, man. We got to be clearing more than we put out, and that wasn't the case this week. Primarily because, let's be real, the if you played off of this, the cash game lineup just wasn't cash money. Now, there's some things that we could explain away. Higgins, concussion, he left the game early, whatever. But a lot of this other stuff didn't work. Now, what did work was there's a tournament lineup, did very well. The mini play action on DraftKings placed, fairly high in that, draw back some money for the coffers. But the point is not to draw back some money for the coffers. The point is to crush it every week. I think last year I actually didn't play much in week one, just put a few feelers out there, but I went hard for you guys in week one. You can't really believe in something unless you put your money where your mouth is. That's what I did in this week. Not wait till week two, week three, till we kind of know, string you guys along for a couple of weeks, maybe take credit. No, 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 no. Put my money where my mouth is in week one. A lot of it didn't work out. Some of it did, though. And we learned. We learned. That's the most important thing. I'm not ashamed of coming up short when we're just all kind of, trying to figure it out at the same time. Now, what happened this week probably won't be happening the rest of the weeks moving forward, and it's certainly not acceptable. But we learned a lot of lessons, and we did have a tournament lineup that approached the opportunity to bring back even larger money. So, just got to be more savvy on the contest. DraftKings making that a little bit harder, but we got to stick to our guns there and just stick to the program. The seasonal aspect proves that the program works. I'm not going to get bummed out because I lost one of my league games because Cam Akers, didn't play and Daryl Henderson did. Upside, y'all, we know how to handcuff. So in that league, and that's a pro football fantasy football championship league. I got them both. I handcuffed them both in the professional league with dudes that play for money all the time. You could do it. You could do it in your draft. So, not going to harp over spill grapes or whatever. We're just going to keep moving forward. But that's the come to Jesus moment right away to start the show. Now, besides that, let's review what we saw so we can get into our dominance for this week. A lot of stuff to run down. As from Thursday, as we review Thursday, just one note. I know we talked about it last week, but in retrospect, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you guys this. As long as Allen can excel in the quick game against the two high shells and simultaneously take advantage of the rare deep ball opportunities when the defense rotates to the single high, then the Bills are going to be tough to beat. They're going to be tough to beat if that's going to be the case all year long. Moving along, the Bengals O line gave a lot of time for Burrow, and I see Burrow looking downfield in this game against the Steelers and forcing it. We said the Steelers are going to win this game. I didn't exactly see this happen. He was forcing it downfield. Had to get rid of it a lot quicker last time. Overtime helped him pay off this week, but something interesting. The one thing that people have been saying is if he had a better O line, it appears to have been the Achilles heel last week because of the unfamiliarity with playing with such protection. He just kind of was laying out back there. Bears' best teammate showed up, the weather. Taylor scored a lot of points, Jonathan Taylor, but $9,100 is a lot to pay off on DraftKings. And so just one thing to consider, you need your guy to go 3.5 times X to win these tournaments. And so it's like, talking about a lot of points. Jahan Dotson. We talked about him a little bit in our couple of pods before the season started. Stud, 2 touchdowns. Won't always go that way. He'll draw some more attention now. But what we like is for McLaurin owners, this is another viable weapon on the field that needs to be accounted for. Logan Thomas is also healthy now. So things are on the uptick for the Commanders there. Flacco and Michael Carter prove what can happen when bad teams need to chase good teams. The Lions, defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn's got to figure it out. They had a lot of problems tackling. They don't still seem to be equipped to running the defense that they want to run there. DJ Chark saw a promising amount of targets. A lot of targets for him last week. That's interesting. And then Goff, we know what it is. We could be cute about it. We could be sweet about it. He's the weak link of that team. It seems to be a pretty complete team outside of the stresses that he puts on them by his lack of exceptional play, we'll say. Swift didn't practice a little bit this week, was uncertain, says he's going to play against the Commanders. I was liking Williams on the bench behind him had he sat, but with him out there, who knows? So I'm out. Jalen Hurts, one thing I saw that I liked, he had that shovel throw out of bounds when it looked like he's going to be tackled for a loss or tackled at the line of scrimmage. So important. If he's going to be able to figure out how to do stuff like that all year long, then he's going to be able to eat run losses and truly provide the option play. Like that, we talked about this a little bit now. Go back to those first 2 podcasts. Singled out the Eagles' offensive line a couple of times. I think all 3 podcasts. But knew they had a good offensive line. Knew they were going to run all the guys in their running back group. But what we can say is I was wrong on A.J. Brown. Order of importance, he was up there. They did take advantage of that mismatch with the Lions secondary. But for the Eagles, piss poor tackling too, just like the Lions. Looks like attacking these guys in the middle of the field with the tight end in the slot might work. But you'll need to keep up with them in terms of the Eagles because their offense is fire. Boston Scott, Miles Sanders, Hurts all score rushing touchdowns. We have four dudes get in the box on the ground, I believe. Sanders is battling a four-way committee in Philadelphia. Gainwell is the passing down back. Scott mixes in on early downs. The Eagles have a quality offensive line. And if somehow Sanders found himself sharing only, reps with Hurts, that'd be great. But that's not the case right now. He needs a lot of injuries for that to happen. Gainwell is a primary passing down back and might have the most to gain should Sanders or Scott suffer an injury. Raiders, they were terrible against the pass. The play action and the RPOs killed them. I'm sorry, they were terrible against the pass. Play action and the RPOs killed them. Arizona corners were stationary last week. That's something we'll have to take a note of moving forward. They didn't really move that much. Cardinals wide receiver Rondell Moore in practice this week, probably not going to play. Andy Isabella also out. So this walking corpse crew going to be the case again this week, just like usual in Arizona. Not going to get out of this one easy. You guys are going to have to play your way out, scheme your way out, fight your way out. Titans, O-line is trash. The Colts play 5 full quarters of football while most teams play 4. And Matt Ryan still finished below average in fantasy points scored. So that's really all you need to know about that if you like 352 in the box when you're looking at his stats. Kelsey able to find his week 1 success in an unusual way. Targeted 6 times while lined up as the furthest outside receiver, either isolated or with a tight end lined up inside of him. He caught all 6 of those passes for 90 yards. So again, Reed and company just finding Airbnb, just finding different ways to involve their superstar as he evolves, his career evolves. Very interesting to see at this stage of the game. Feels like the Ravens didn't want to tip their hand in a game they knew they would win, so they didn't really show us too much. Miami's defense led the way. Offense will need to improve a great deal. All right, guys, those are the things that we needed to talk about as far as last week goes. And so we can move on to where we're headed this week with a little bit of favorite segment for some of you, a little housekeeping there. All right, we are out for the folks on the podcast. And while you guys are watching me get ready for them and they're listening to an ad, I'll tell you I'm interested in the Seahawks this week. I was surprised by Geno Smith. I think Geno surprised me the most out of like anybody that I saw this week. I didn't expect him to look so sharp, getting the ball down the field. I thought he was pretty great. There was a lot to like there. And just a preview for you guys, because the podcast listeners are listening to ads right now. It's like 38 seconds in between every segment. I kind of like them for tournament purposes this week. I think they have an opportunity to combine with the Niners and actually put up some pretty decent numbers. And so we'll look forward to that. And you'll see in the DFS segment, they won't hear this, but you will. They'll see in the DFS segment that will recommending playing those wide receivers for Seattle, see if they can open it up. We saw what they did with the tight end last week. So we are back with a little bit of housekeeping. Going to keep it short and succinct this week. Just a couple of notes since we had a longer intro. Number 1, overreaction is real. Why did you draft a guy if you're not going to stand by that? We can't be having this thing where you've already dropped 3 dudes on your team before we even get to week 2. Like, what are we doing here? That's not what the process is. We follow it to the T. And one thing you guys got to understand is early season usage doesn't always equate to late season usage. Different players come on at different times of the year. Offenses play differently at different points of the year. Injuries dictate things a little later. There's a lot of moving pieces. So you can't just be out. I've seen people dump Akers, waiver wire Akers. He's 1 injury away of being back in it. Why? We don't need to do that. We have to stick to our guns. We have to be patient. I know we've been waiting a long time for football, but we don't decide the championship in week 1. We're on the road, and we're not going to sabotage ourselves by letting the smallest sample in the world dictate what we do for the rest of the year. Just don't do it. They want to do it, let's let them do that. We're going to stick to our formula. 6 wins and 3 losses formula, meaning only make significant moves if you get to 3 losses, but you don't have 6 wins. Simple as that. Um, that's going to be harder for some of you than others, but it's important that you give your team room to breathe, and that's simply enough. Any more, you're in trouble. Second housekeeping note of the three that we have this week has to do with the statistics. You guys haven't heard me label off a lot of stats, yell off a lot of stats yet. Rule of thumb, we need stats to talk about. One is not a sample size. Two is not a sample size. Listen, week 5 we got stats because after week 5 we have 4 weeks of football. That's a quarter of football. Used to be 16 games, 4 games. That's a quarter. That's 25% stats. 3 games, maybe a trend. Not stats. 4 is a stat. So we're gonna wait till week 5, but then we will start to rely on rankings, statistics, ordinal numbers to help us understand a little more easily where we go. Until now, we watch the game. Look at what we see. If you can't watch every game, you rely on me. Just know if you're watching the game, turn the volume down if you feel like, because the talking heads aren't going to help you. They have a different agenda than what you and I have. Our agenda is to win, to find the best play. Their agenda is content. It's a little different. We don't have to knock them for it. We're looking for different things. Turning the volume down doesn't hurt you. It helps you focus on what you saw. If you turn the volume back up at halftime and listen to what they say, you'd be surprised at how differently the perception is versus what you saw. But believe yourself because you saw it. You saw it with your own eyes. You're not a liar. I don't think. Last, oh, not last. We have 4. I'm sorry, I'm a liar. Third one, tight end sucks. You can always stream your opponent's tight end if nothing else. And seasonal tight end just sucks, guys. It's a barren wasteland. So upset with what happened in week 1. Recommend a bunch of these dudes because we're just looking for the touchdown. If it's mostly anybody but Andrews or Kelsey, but we just didn't get a lot of love at all. Period. Whoa, a couple of issues there, but we're good. So we're going to stay away from that. The other thing, this is the last note actually. For receivers of all sorts, targets and air yards are something we can review to understand what the offense wants to do despite weekly successes and failures, thus giving us good predictors of future probabilities. So not only targets, but air yards too. You have to look at, even if there's incompletions, we need to see how many times they went to this dude like 50 yards down the field or whatever. Super important, especially in DFS if we want to win the money. All right, guys, those are our housekeeping notes for the week. So hopefully that house is nice and tidy as we head into week 2. All right, we'll get them out of here again. And in addition to Seattle, like I said, San Francisco, they're going to play better. I think this is 2 teams. You guys are getting a preview of what I think about that game, but we're talking about 2 teams where, you know, in terms of San Francisco, the weather made them look probably not as good as they are. Or I'm sorry, not as good as they are. But for Seattle, I think it was an emotional thing going up against Russ. I'm not exactly sure that they are that good, to be quite honest with you guys. So just what I'm assuming. But anywho, next we're coming up with the Would You Rather, where of course, if you're new to the show, we're going to talk about how I feel about this player, that player. All right, so on to Would You Rather. And again, same format as last week, actually, not going to veer too much off the path from that. We'll go over about 12 different conundrums here, seem to be the most requested things. So, Allen Robinson or Chase Edmonds, Miami going up this week in a contest that I think they will probably have the opportunity to run the football a little bit more than they'll pass against the Ravens. I don't mind Edmonds, but I like Allen Robinson this week in an opportunity for the Rams to establish themselves, establish their offense, establish Stafford, because this is like got to be like training camp for him now. He didn't really have a preseason, so I think you got to get that rapport built in. I like Robinson this week. You guys will see we're recommending him. Brandon Cooks or Rashad Penny. Uh, I think Denver's in a sucker game. It's going to be a tougher game than. I'm sorry, not Denver, Seattle. Seattle's in a tougher game with San Francisco. Meanwhile, Houston, that's what I'm thinking of for Brandon Cooks. They're in a tougher game with Denver. I don't think Cooks has a real big path to victory this week. Penny, probably not either, but I would say of the two, I'm probably just going to go Cooks because they'll be trailing. I think there may be some garbage time, but he gets a lot of targets. It's just going to be tough. Allen Robinson or Jeff Wilson Jr. We'll go with Jeff Wilson this week just because he's going to get the most touches due to the injury in the backfield there for San Francisco. So we'll take that opportunity. It's going to be heavily popular on DFS though, so probably need to find another direction. Jeff Wilson or Chase Claypool again. Wilson, but I like Claypool this week. I think his depth of target is going to work out versus the Patriots. They may be able to put a hold on Deontay Johnson. Najee's going to play. I mean, he's probably healthy. There's no injury designation, but I mean, do they really run him into the ground after that scare? I'm not sure. So I do think Claypool's in play, but Jeff Wilson probably. Damian Harris or Jahan Dotson? Jahan Dotson. I'll probably take Damian Harris, even though we all love Dotson, of course. Daryl Henderson Jr. this week or CeeDee Lamb. Got to go with Henderson. Falcons were pretty stout last week on the ground, but Henderson should find some room. He has a definitive role. Lamb is relying on his backup, Cooper Rush. We'll have to see how that goes. Not promising so far as the outlook, but who knows? They could surprise us. He did well last year, but you got to remember they had Cooper as well. So there's a lot less weapons to go around now. Gallup's not going to play. A little bit more to key in on Lamb. So precarious maybe. So we'll take Henderson. Bateman versus Brees Hall. I think you got to go with Brees Hall because he actually got more targets than Bateman last week. He's a part of the offense, especially if they need to keep up or come back. They should need to keep up or come back this week, even though he's not the lead back. Michael Carter is. That should tell you how much I trust Bateman or lack of how much I trust Bateman. His role just doesn't seem to be solidified in any way that we could take advantage of. So I mean, I'm not really trying to have you guys bet on stuff that is unseen. So DK Metcalf or Devin Singletary this week. Interesting one here. I think I like Metcalf for DFS purposes. I really do think that there's an opportunity for him to shine. As far as Singletary goes against Tennessee, I do like him a little more though. But I will say there are other weapons, and so while the opportunity on the ground looks solid, I just am not sure of what his role will be because of order of importance, we should say, right? So I'll say I'll actually just end up going with DK Metcalf in that scenario. Okay. But it's a close one. Cordell Patterson or Cortland Sutton. Uh, Patterson against the Rams is going to have a tough time. I'd rather take a chance on Sutton, even though it's not a sure thing with Sutton because you got Judy lurking around out there. You've got the running backs and Gordon and Javonte Williams, and then you've got Alberto as well. So Sutton, we don't know definitively what his order in the pecking order is, but I think it's still an easier path than what Cordell Patterson is probably looking at this week. So we will take Sutton, CeeDee Lamb, or AJ Dillon. I'll go with Dillon against the Bears. Yeah, we'll take Dillon over Lamb for sure. I don't think much explanation needed there. Melvin Gordon the third or Drake London this week. I'll take Melvin Gordon the third. He's a part of that offense, whether you Javante owners like it or not. Definitive role, goal line role. Drake London impressed last week, but it's a tougher matchup this week. And so, again, I'll go with Gordon. And finally, Marquise Brown or David Montgomery. Now, I will actually go with my. This is a tough one. I'm gonna say Marquise Brown because the Cardinals will need to keep up. The Bears, I think, will also need to keep up, and so that signifies more passes than runs. And so I don't think Montgomery is going to be used so much as a weapon out of the backfield catching passes. That doesn't really profile for him, and I don't think the game's going to be close enough for him to pound the rock, as it were. Packers should get ahead. So probably more of the Bears trying to keep up. Marquise Brown, I think he's in a great spot just because he has to produce. He got a lot of targets. There's not a lot of other healthy guys out there. So now's the time for him to make a difference. All right, that is our would you rather. Now you guys know who I would rather, and hopefully that helps you determine who you would rather coming up. Okay, guys, we're on a break while we switch it up for the listeners there. Guys, I think they might get a different intro than you guys because I hate to say it, but I don't think I actually saved the intro correctly. And it was a fire one too. But just a little secret between you and I, they'll probably hear something a little different on the podcast. More people seem to be listening or watching rather nowadays. So cool, cool, cool. We're coming up on our next segment, which is, of course, the reload. We're going to talk in rapid fashion about each one of our contests this week. And again, I think this is another segment where we get, maybe more stats later on in the year. But for now, it's kind of like I don't want you guys to be believing that a team is what they say they are after one game because it doesn't really work out that way. So we got to know better, and I won't entertain it. But when it's relevant, we will talk about it. We did talk about a few numbers earlier that matter, and that's fine. But now it is time for us to reload. We already had the Thursday night game where we saw another in the epic battles between the Chargers and the Chiefs. That's just going to be a forever thing, or a long time thing. I shouldn't say forever, but a long time thing between Mahomes and Herbert, I think, just because literally they're both so young. They've got a lot of future. It should be fun. It should really, really be fun. But he got injured at the end of that one. Herbert ribs. Hopefully he's okay. Doesn't miss time. But the Chiefs were able to win, even though the Chargers were able to do everything that they wanted to do. The Chiefs are really good. The Chiefs are really, really good, and the road to the Super Bowl is likely going to have to go through there at some point. They're putting everybody on notice. Mahomes doesn't seem to be affected by losing Hill, and they just roll. And the different usage in backs definitely makes sense because of the shortness of the week, right? And so it's kind of like all that, sort of makes sense that this week, or Clyde Edwards, a Hilaire or whatever, because they ran Pacheco a little bit more in the opener. But that's all we really need to know about that one. Reload. Miami at Baltimore. I've heard my Oops, sorry guys. Miami at Baltimore. So as far as this game goes, Miami played Baltimore tough the last couple of times they played. Last time, particular last year, they gave them a lot of problems, blitzing them. We have the same staff minus a head coach, so we can expect a lot of the same. Baltimore did have some injuries in the secondary, just a couple of different injuries on the team. They're a little more healthier this time around. They should be getting J.K. Dobbins back, but I still think that this is a game Miami can win. Their defense should shine. You still got to believe in Jackson and his ability to pay off just because he's the only show in town for Baltimore. So it's going to run through him, trying to get it to Andrews. I think that's the play, of course. Miami path to victory against them, probably on the ground a little more. And so I'd expect to see probably Drake mixed in, but Dobbins too. I'd love to recommend Dobbins, but Drake's hanging around. They trusted him so much after bringing him in just immediately. So I was shocked to see that. And I'm not too sure that he goes away, although that's what we'd like to see, right? But Miami, for their part, I think they try to run too with their guys. That'll be a little easier than trying to attack through the air, but they should have some success. The secondary's banged up a little. Peters is coming back. They're getting a few guys back, but we're still without Kyle Fuller. And so, you got to watch Tariq. He could be in play this week. That could stretch things out for some of the other guys. Gasecki, not so much. He's kind of out of place in this offense. But I think more like last week when we called the Miami defense, that was a great call. We paid down for them. I think the defense is for real. They show up again this week. I think they give um, the Ravens problems again. And I think they actually win this football game on the road and try to show that they're the real deal. It's a big football game for them. We're going to take them as upsets, not just because I got the hat on and I'm a Fins fan, but I think legitimately they schematically are in place to give the Ravens everything they can handle. And just losing Kyle Fuller is such a big thing for the secondary. Reload. Jets at Cleveland. DFS recommending the Jets defense to hang around and pay off that $2,200 salary on DK this week, but they'll ultimately lose this game. I don't think they're going to get blown out. Jets are going to try to play tough. They know they played the Ravens tough last week. They want to play Cleveland tough as well. Cleveland's going to run the football. We know that. Peoples Jones probably see some of the looks, but again, I'm not sure how much success he'll have. He may open up things for uh, I wouldn't even say Cooper. I mean, you could, maybe the tight end, but honestly, I'm just thinking Hunt is the beneficiary here. I like Hunt in this game, Chubb in this game. I like the Cleveland defense in this game. I don't think they'll have to do a lot to win. We know the kicker York has a leg on him. I think Cleveland will be able to kind of like, tread water and take this one. But the Jets aren't going to get blown out. We're looking at a dirty low game. Cleveland can probably win without scoring 20 points. Reload. New England at Pittsburgh. We called Pittsburgh winning last week. Pittsburgh's going to win again this week. New England is not a terrible team. Okay, I don't want to have you guys think that they're super trash, but this is another bad matchup for them. Pittsburgh's got a pretty good defense. Mac Jones going to be healthy enough to play. Who knows what we're going to get from him? Not excited to see what they can do versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's too dominant, so they should. We saw them force Burrow to make a bunch of turnovers. I think mostly his decision with, like I said, too much time on the line. But we did see them have a heck of a defensive performance, and so with a much lesser offense here, we should see them do the same. New England should try to run a bit to offset the pass rush from Pittsburgh and maybe help out Jones. Some play action, perhaps. But the running backs probably have a decent chance of doing okay. But it's Bill Belichick, so we don't know which running back, whether it's Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson. But we do know that Ty Montgomery is not going to play, so one less guy to worry about in the two-headed monster. That's going to be their path to success, is trying to slow this thing down. But another defensive one here, another gritty one here. I think Pittsburgh can force turnovers. Their defense leads the way. Fryermuth not going to be as good as he was last week. He's still in play all year, though. But just this week, probably a tougher sledding. We do like Claypool, as we mentioned. Deontay Johnson will get some looks, but I think he'll be sufficiently covered. Pickens will be out there running routes, but I think he'll be more of a distraction, if anything. Hence, I'm narrowing it down to Claypool, especially with his depth of target around the line. Pittsburgh will win this one. Somehow, I think Trubisky gets to 2-0. Najee Harris, not he'll run, he'll play. Dude's tough. He's going to play. There's no injury designation. I think that running game, bad O line, good running back. So he's going to play. So they have some running game there. I don't think he blows it out of the water, though. Just coming back. Reload. Indy at Jacksonville. Indy's going to get Leonard back in the middle, so I don't expect James Robinson to have a fantastic day on the ground. I do expect him to lead the way, though. Jacksonville, I don't expect many bright spots for them. Not recommending a lot of their players. I think Indy defense has a chance to pay off in cash game premises this week, $3,500 on DraftKings. Very interested there. I think Taylor has a way to pay off. So that's pound the rock territory, their defense and Taylor. It's pretty expensive, though. If you got the money, you can pay for it, honey. Most of us probably won't, though. Indianapolis, as far as will they rely on the run, Pittman a little banged up. Why rely on the run when you got the hammer and the rock and the thunder behind the running back, right? So I expect Taylor to play and then Hines to get the reps later on when they're ahead. That's what I'm looking at. Defense or offensively, as far as the tight end goes, so wrong about Mo Alley Cox out there running around. a little bit, but they are sticking to their multiple headed dragon tight end thing. So we were all a little wrong. I was a little wrong, bit in on some of the hearsay. We'll bow back out now. But Indy leads the way with the ground. A lot of those players in the wide receiver corps are banged up. Pierce, Pittman. I'm not going to take that chance. They're going to go with what they know, defense and running back, but they'll win that game. Jacksonville, not aspiring play from Lawrence, not the most terrible in the world, but it was not great. Etienne, same thing. Robinson should take over for him. I don't think Lawrence will play good enough to activate the receivers here. You can take a chance on Ingram if you want to. I'm probably not going to. Jacksonville loses that one. Reload. Carolina at the Giants. Man, Baker, I think this is going to be a tough game for them. This is a winnable game, though, for Carolina and for the Giants. The Giants, I think, have an edge, though. I like Saquon Barkley. If not for the running, for the pass catching ability, I think more so against this Carolina defense. And so he's in play. We don't know what's going on with the receiving core for the Giants and Danny Dimes. Like there's a bunch of guys out there. We have no idea in what order they prefer them or who's going to play or who's in the doghouse. So we'll keep watching. But as I said, Saquon Barkley is the engine that's making it run right now. The defense can play sufficient enough against this Carolina team where I think more of the focus should probably be put on Robbie Anderson based on what we saw last week. And if that's the case, should open things back up against DJ Moore. I am not going away from him. I think there's another good spot for him. He's a great player. If they're gonna give the main coverage to other guys besides him, let's let that happen because his true ability will shine through. This is a great opportunity for that too. $5,700 on DraftKings. Oh, my own, take a chance. Why don't you? As far as who's going to win this game, I expect Carolina to also run the football in the pass with their back, McCaffrey. So, hopefully he can stay healthy in this one. Give them an opportunity to get the ball downfield. Their offense should be able to move it okay against the Giants. The Giants' offense should be able to move it okay against Carolina. We're going to have a good old-fashioned football game. Mid-20s probably. Should come down to the wire. I'll give it to the Giants at home, though. Reload. Tampa Bay at New Orleans. Terrific time. Always has a tough time with the Saints. The Saints play the Bucks very well. I think they'll do so again here. The problem with being so sure about it is terrible Jameis could show up at any time, Jekyll and Hyde mode, but we do expect them to have the opportunity to win this football game. The Saints defense should help keep the pressure on Brady. And offensively, James has all the weapons. Michael Thomas appears to be back and healthy. You got Chris Olave out there. Jarvis Landry making a difference on the under routes for sure. And Kamara's actually banged up. And so I think when you look at what the path to victory is for New Orleans, probably going to have to pass it a little bit more. Even if Kamara was healthy, it's like he would be catching the passes because not so much running against Tampa Bay. But they'll have to keep up. I think the defense will help them, as I said, though. That's what it's going to be. They'll do just enough. For the Tampa Bay side, Tom is, running the football. I think, this is going to, Fournette's in play for sure. You can't just let the Saints pin their ears back and go against you. Tom's receivers are all banged up. Evans is going to play and get the attention. That's what's going to happen. He's getting shadow from Lattimore. That's what they always do. It's like, war of attrition, so you can't really recommend him. A seasonal play, I'm going to feel good about it, but at DFS, you probably stay away, in my opinion. But the rest of these guys are banged up. All of them are banged up. Julio sat some this week in practice. Gage with the hamstring. I mean, Godwin's not going to play. You name it, he's banged up there. So that's why it's hard for me to trust any of those guys, even in a tournament format. I do like Fournette, though. It makes sense that they will lean on him. Their defense will try to show up. This will be a tough one and a gritty one. I think New Orleans wins it at home again. Reload. Washington and Detroit. Wentz played better than everybody expected last week. This is going to be a fun game. They can put up some points. Detroit will have to put up some points. I don't really respect either of these defenses. As far as Detroit goes, you'd love to play Swift and feel good about it, but he's banged up. I know he's going to play. I wanted to play Williams and hope that Swift wouldn't play, but he's going to play. So I'm out on Williams, even though he did score the 2 touchdowns last week. Vulture status, can't chase that. We missed it. As far as the rest of the Detroit offense, like I said, Goff is kind of the weak link, but I like him this week for tournaments. There's so much around you, and his price is so low. Don't hurt me. You got to pay off in a game that you're going to have to keep up because their defense is trash. So I love him. Amon St. Brown is in a great place. He was last week. I wasn't buying it too much. We played him in a tournament. We did cash in a little, but he's in a great spot again this week. Um, Hawkinson, arguably, but not so much in my opinion. DJ Chark, I like him more. He saw a bunch of targets, loved his involvement. That bodes well for this week. On the other side, things I said they'll have to keep up. Gibson's in play, not really being vultured by McKissick. He caught 6 passes too, which is cool. Guy played wide receiver at one point in his college career. So, I mean, this is not like something he can't do. Um, I like that, though. If he's going to be able to catch passes, that's great. More opportunity out there. We'll take that. As far as the wide receivers go, Scary Terry. We like Terry McLaurin. Love Jahan Dotson from last week. Maybe he gets more attention. That's just good for Terry. I don't think, if people want to go to Dotson, let's let them do it. We can go back to Terry for the same reason people played AJ Brown last week and expect some success. But like I said, Washington should be able to put some pressure on. Wynn should be able to put some pressure on. I don't think they have a good defense, so Detroit should be able to respond in kind. This should be a back and forth game. I think sadly Detroit, it's a heartbreaker and they lose this one at home. Washington finds a way to win. Those receivers are really dynamic and they probably have a little bit more at quarterback. Reload. Seattle at San Francisco. Podcast people. What they know on YouTube that you don't. We think that Seattle has a chance to see Geno play decently again and keep up with San Fran. San Fran's got some injuries in the backfield already. Jason Verrett can never stay healthy. A lot of these guys missing time. So I think there's some vulnerability there. Again, last week, rain game, so I'm not taking too much from that. But I do think that on the Seattle side of things, they probably were pumped up to face Russ Wilson at home. It was a very emotional thing. They're probably not as good of a team as what we saw. So each team is going to pull towards the middle and come a little bit closer to who they are this week. I do think that I want to take a chance tournament side on Gino. He looked, I can't deny it, y'all. He looked good. He looked ready to seize his opportunity. I want to see if he can activate these receivers. I want to play them in a tournament and see what happens because that's the path to victory against San Francisco here. As far as running the ball, Penny, is he in play? Kenneth Walker's coming back, so we'll have to see how that shakes out. A little less interested there. Not worried about the tight ends this week. I don't think that's a thing. That's why I want to see if he can activate these receivers or if he uses his legs to keep the plays alive. This is an interesting football game. On the San Francisco side, Trey Lance. I think it'll be better sledding this week. He can use his legs. It won't be wet. Debo Samuel will be in play. He scored a touchdown last week. He has a chance to rack up more numbers this week. Brendan Ayuk definitely in play this week. Love him for tournaments. That flyer going deep. He can catch a bomb pass if Lance can get it to him. No Kittle this week. Jeff Wilson Jr. getting the run. Probably in play, but these guys can't stay healthy. I don't want to be in on it. It's a multiple committee bag. They run so hard. They all get so injured. But I think this is a close game that I will say Seattle wins. Reload. Atlanta going to LA to face the Rams. Mariota produced last week. We like him for tournaments this week because it's an uphill battle, we're thinking. Even though defense is pretty good, they're going to have to try to put some points on the board. So I like him just having to do something all day. Will it happen? Who knows? But we're going to take a chance based on what we saw last week. Cordell Patterson, decent day on the ground last week. Don't think he'll be able to reproduce that against the Rams this week. Hence, thinking that they'll need to find clever ways to air it out, whether it's getting him the ball or Pitts or London. But you've got to try to get somebody involved. Zacchaeus is out there running routes. We'll have to see what they come up with. Rams will be tough. I think Stafford's fine. I think, like I said, this is preseason. They'll get him more of a groove. Him and Cup, we know, have a groove. Cup should be fine. I think for DFS, he's going to be hard to pay off this week at 9,900. Woof, my own. But I do like Allen Robinson. I think they try to establish some rapport because it's in a game that they should be winning. I think Mariota probably can be competitive stat wise, but probably turns the ball over, maybe even a pick six, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised. So I can see a scenario where the Rams are working in some of these other facets of the offense, getting things figured out, while Atlanta, for their part, is trying to make sure that they're still in it, right? So, game that the Rams obviously win at home and get back on the winning side of things to start their season. Reload. Houston at Denver. I think Houston plays tough again here. Wrong guys in charge sometimes, man. And Lovey playing for the Tide, that's not a good thing. That's not a motivational thing. But this is a tough football team. They actually have a rush with Jerry Hughes now. So we saw that. I think it'll be a situation where Russ has to get the ball out. Is he in play? Sure. But the running backs are also in play. So I think it's a balanced attack that can score points. But Houston is going to not just roll over and die. Again, defensively, I think they'll show up. They will bring that rush. And so maybe you try to run a little more. But we know the running game is split between Williams and Gordon. And so I can't favor one or the other, except to say that I think Williams or Gordon close to the goal line. But I think that's the path to victory. The defense for Denver probably shows up, but they're going to be tough. Mills going to make it tough on them. I do think that the path to victory there probably on the ground too, but I just don't think that their running backs can get the job done. Whether you're looking at Burkhead or you're looking at Pierce, and I wouldn't get rid of Pierce like we talked about in the housekeeping segment because Burkhead is 33 years old and playing running back. It's not going to hold up all year having that single position to himself, and so don't buy into that. But anyways, for this game, we do like Denver. I think it's going to be closer than what they would want, but they will win this one. Judy, like it. You could say, you know, is anybody else in play? Sure. We have to see what Russ's preference are. It could easily be Sutton. I know Sutton's definitely in play this week, but so are the running backs in the defense. But Denver rolls. Reload. Arizona at Vegas. Arizona injuries, with the wide receiver again. And so they're going to have to play football. You're going to have to get it to Hollywood Brown again because there's nobody else. AJ Green, that's not a thing, guys. We saw that. Hurts doesn't carry the injury designation this week. And so I do think there's a great opportunity to get Hurts involved. And I do like what they'll be looking for him for sure. So I like that. He's in play. Connor's in play again this week. Love it. Goal line touches, just catching passes out of the backfield, you name it, right? Like Connor's in play for sure. So it's Connor and it's Ertz and it's Brown. Those are the ones that I'm primarily liking for this Arizona offense if Rondale Moore and company are going to sit. Kyler Murray, I don't think he can pay off his exorbitant salary in DFS, but for seasonal, play him in a game that I think that they can play better than they played last week, but they're ultimately still going to lose. They're going to chase this game. The Raiders are going to be in a different role than they were last week. They were chasing the Chargers last week, as we thought, and they couldn't keep up, but they're going to be the ones being chased this week. Devontae Adams definitely in play. Should be able to have his way, no problem. Don't see why that would be an issue. Like him a lot more than I like Waller this week because, they're just going to go to Adams first. Nobody else really got targets we should look at, but you do have Waller and Renfro out there if you're curious. But I would probably stick to Adams. I like Jacobs on the ground, but again, it's such a partial role that I'm not going out of my way for DFS. You feel fine in seasonal if you're rolling out with that. Their defense isn't too much to be scared of, which is why I think Arizona has a better shot than last week to put up some points to make it interesting. So Vegas will have to return in kind. Maybe those other two receivers do get activated, but if that were to happen, I would say order a preference after Adams, like Waller or Renfro. I'm probably going, in this scenario, maybe Renfro, but definitely Adams, Jacobs in play. Vegas should win. Reload. Cincinnati at Dallas. Tricks on DraftKings. $2,200 for that Cincinnati defense. I think they're not as good as what we think. Dallas, I don't want to phrase that as saying Dallas is going to play better than what we think. I just think that the Cincinnati defense is not as good as what we think. We saw Pittsburgh, what they did to them last week. I don't think that Dallas is going to have a huge amount of success, but path to victory has to be using the running back. So both Pollard and Zeke are going to get some run. Zeke should be able to catch some passes. That's check down work that Cooper Rush can handle. I don't know if he'll be able to activate Lamb. I like Schultz. That's check down work that he can handle. So that's three receivers right there. You can run some bunch packages, bring out another tight end. That's the best chance. I mean, the O line is stressed as it is, and so maybe bunching it up does help. But I don't foresee a lot. They're going to put stress on this Dallas defense. Dallas doesn't have a terrible defense, but they're going to have to play their butts off to make up for an offense that I think is going to have problems. Um, scoring a lot of points. But again, Cincinnati not as good as we think on defense, and so those are the paths to victory that we just said. Those are the players. Gallup's not going to play. Noah Brown probably not going to be effective. For the Cincinnati side of things, because Cincinnati's going to win this ball game, it's going to be their offense, not their defense, that wins it. And so Burrow's in play. Jamar Chase is in play. Higgins, I wish we knew for sure. I think he's probably going to play. If he doesn't play, Boyd for sure. But even if he does play, him and Boyd are going to split the looks that I thought would go to him. So I'm just not sure about there. But Chase, I'm more sure about. Mixon, we like that. Definitely at the goal line for sure. Not looking at Hurst too much. I don't think this is his week to get established. But Cincinnati should win this game. Reload. Sunday night, the Chicago Bears going up to Green Bay to face the Packers. Talked a little bit about this one earlier, too. Rodgers and company should bounce back and win this one. He fares fairly well against Chicago usually. They're going to have Lazard back, it looks like. They should be able to run on Chicago. I like Jones and Dillon. I think Green Bay gets ahead, and so I like Dillon a little later, too. But I think the ground game definitely pounds Chicago a little bit. Can they have success in the air? Sure. I think he can activate a receiver or two. I'm not looking at Tynion so much. Maybe Lazard shows us what's up. They want to get the offense rolling. It looked like he's an integral part of it because he was the only player missing last week, really, and they couldn't really do anything. It seemed like they were stymied without their guy, quote unquote. So he might be the guy. So interest there, but definitely the ground game against the Bears. So the Bears side of things, talked about Montgomery earlier. I don't know if he'll have a chance to shine just because pack the victory against Green Bay probably does include running it a little bit, but they're going to have to throw to keep up. And, so that's that. I do think Khalil Herbert probably in play catching passes. As far as Bears wide receivers go, you got Mooney out there, but I'm just not too interested in that. I think the Packers secondary probably the better play. Their defense probably the better play. Bears just overmatched. Their offensive line isn't very good. I looked at that game last week. They are who we thought they were, to quote Denny Green. I think the weather helped them, but they're still a team with a lot of deficiencies, and that's going to show up this week. Now, if we get weather, and it's another weather game, then all bets are off. Chicago knows how to play in bad weather. Then it comes right back to 50-50 chance on who wins that one. Reload on the Monday night, our last two games here. So the first Monday night game, Tennessee at Buffalo. Tennessee is going to have their hands full with Buffalo. I don't think they'll be able to keep up. It's going to be hard for Henry to establish himself when the path to victory against Buffalo probably is more in the air. So, you're looking at the likes of Traylon Burks. You're looking at the likes of Bob Woods. I mean, these guys should have an opportunity with Tannehill to shine a little and try to keep up. Probably Austin Hooper getting some looks too, you would think, in the end zone. But it's all up in the air because it's not proven. So we'll have to see if they can even pull it off, right? I don't think they're going to win this game. They're going to try to pound it with Henry, but if Buffalo blows them out of the water, who knows how successful that's going to be. They'll probably just have to go away from it anyway. On the Buffalo side of things, too much sauce, baby. Too much sauce for this Tennessee defense. I mean, Diggs, Gabriel, Crowder in the slot, Knox, Singletary, everybody's available. Allen, he's probably going to rush one in. It's just, Buffalo's going to roll. I don't think they're going to have problems with Tennessee. I think Tennessee's going to have a good game plan. I'm respecting the coaching. I'm respecting how they match up with Buffalo's coaching. They'll keep them in it. They'll have some different looks to try to stymie the Buffalo defense. But by game's end, Buffalo's going to take over. That defense is going to take over. Tennessee's offense is going to have some problems, especially with that O-line. And our final shot, so we're making a good one. Reload, Minnesota at Philadelphia. Minnesota going to have a tougher matchup this week. Philly, their defense, probably not that great, though. So Minnesota should be all systems go. I do like Thielen to bounce back. We know he didn't do much last week. Try again. Tougher way to beat Philly is probably on the ground. So, Cook, again, probably taking a backseat to the passing game this week. Irv Smith probably getting a little bit more involved. But if you haven't figured it out, Cousins probably should have a decent day. They'll have to keep up with Philadelphia, who in their turn will also sling it. That's going to be an easier path to victory, I believe, as well. But they should have room to run. We know we can't figure out which one of those backs it is, right? It's like one or the we don't. It's like they're running all three. They're running the quarterback, but offensively, AJ Brown definitely in play. Devontae Smith definitely in play. Goddard in play. Minnesota, especially the secondary, not that great. So Philly should be able to put the pressure on. And I think outlast them. I think Philadelphia is the real deal, and this is a really good team facing another really good team. But I think Philadelphia will actually pull it out in the end. So that was our final shot. That's the reload segment for this week. So hopefully that gives you guys a better idea of what I think will happen with the contest this week and how the game flow will go. And hopefully that helps you make your game selections. All right, coming into the home stretch now, guys. We're gonna be going into the DFS picks here, the money, the green, the stuff, and I think these are gonna be better picks than last week. But again, I'm gonna stand by those week one picks because I could have easily gave you guys picks and not put my money out there, just put a couple bucks out there and be like, oh, I played two, I lost two, but no, I went big. Let's go big or go home. So we're gonna dive right back in this week and we're gonna get it right because we don't want to be losing 2 weeks in a row. Daily fantasy football is tough, but not impossible. It's winnable. There are winnable scenarios. And one tip you guys are going to get over the podcast people is we said it last week, though. You got to remember to listen to what's going on the day of the inactives because you can catch an edge that way. You can, find out that somebody's last minute not going to go or somebody last minute is going to play. A lot of people want to set things on Friday today and forget about it. Nope. We can get a good line on things. We can start today. Um, but you got to look at it on Sunday right before, like you have to, just to be sure. That's the only path to victory. And at that, guys, we're gonna move along to our final session, the or segment, I should say, the DFS picks from this week. And oh, that's the old sheet. We don't need that one. That didn't have the great picks. Here's the good picks. Gonna keep it simple. Not gonna pick a million things so I could be like, oh, I had you guys covered. Nope. Staying with my chest out here for you. So quarterbacks, cash games, giving you two options: a more expensive and a less expensive. Lamar Jackson, $7,400. I know he's got an uphill battle against the Dolphins, but it's all him. Now, in true candor, I'm going with Mariota, $5,600. We talked about it in Reload. They're going to be playing from behind. He's going to have to do something. $5,600. Hard for you to hurt me. We could pay that off. That leaves a lot of room for other stuff. We love Mariota this week. GPPs, tournaments for quarterback. Burrow, 6,600. Golf, 5,400. Geno Smith, 5,100. That's how we're going to roll. Those are the five guys we're playing this week. Wide receivers, cash games. Adams, $8,600. Got to find a way to fit it in. McLaurin, $6,600. In the meat here also with Hollywood Brown, $6,200. Jerry Judy, $5,600. These are cash game plays that I feel confident about. And then Shark at $5,100. He could pay that off in a game we think they'll be able to, or they'll have to try to keep up. Tournament wide receivers. Jamar Chase, 8K. They'll be looking at him. Samuel, 7,800. We want to take a look and see this week. I'm on Ross St. Brown, $6,500 tournament play because could you say it's a cash game play? Yes, but it's going to be so popular. We need to find a way to use him, but get off that ownership. And so I think tournaments and not cash games. So that's why we play McLaurin at 66 in the cash games. And then we'll play St. Brown in the tournaments at 65 and just differentiate ourselves other places in the tournament. I'll probably put him in a Redskins Lions lineup. And have Goff be the quarterback, not Wentz. That's how we'll differentiate ourselves. That's why we're using Goff this week, not Wentz. If you expect Wentz to do his thing, then you expect Goff to have to keep up. $5,400 cannot hurt you. Wentz isn't going to throw for 300 every week. Just realize that. Anyways, Metcalf, $6,300 for tournaments, and Lockett, $5,600, playing them with Geno. DJ Moore, $5,700. I also like Allen Robinson, $5,500 for tournament, and then Brandon Ayuk, $5,100. So a lot of guys that you can mix in with some of those more expensive guys up top. And then tight ends. After that debacle last week, keep it simple. Cash games. Andrew 6,400 or Ertz 4,500. GPPs tournaments. Schultz 5,200. Should have a lot of opportunities with the checkdowns. Logan Thomas back and healthy for the Redskins, but he, chances are he might lead the game. Who knows? That's why it's a tournament play. 3,400. OJ Howard 3K. He came in after just 1 week with the team, scored 2 touchdowns. He wasn't out there running routes. He didn't have high usage, but the reasoning in the play is not that we were wrong last week, because we were right. He didn't have usage. You can't, that was great. He had the red zone looks, and maybe they just worked on those plays, but we can't guess on that. This week, you can look at it because he's got a chance to integrate into the offense more, so he should know more. So chances are that his number of snaps upticks versus where he was before. So we can take a chance in tournaments. Running backs, cash game. Taylor, if you can afford it. He's so expensive, but you just know they're going to run it through him this week. More feasibly, Connor, $6,900. Fournette, $6,700. Feel great about those guys. Gibson, $6,200. We played him in cash game last week. Really the only running back that paid off. Jamal Williams, if Swift isn't play, looks like Swift is going to play, so we won't go there. Tournaments, though, for running backs, Saquon Barkley, $7,300. Joe Mixon, $7,200. Kareem Hunt, $6,600. Ezekiel Elliott, $5,900. And then Michael Carter, $5,200. This is how we differentiate ourselves, guys. And then defense, we have to stay away from the obvious stuff. The obvious trap is the Bengals. $2,200 is a cash game play. Again, I think the Bengals defense is a lot worse than what we think. So tournament play. I'm not saying don't play them. I'm saying make it a tournament if you want to play $2,200. But if you want a cash game $2,200 defense, play the Jets going into Cleveland. Cleveland with Brissett versus the Jets defense, $2,200. I don't think they'll kill us, guys. We might be able to get away with that. More feasible, Steelers $2,800 in cash, Patriots $2,900 in tournaments, and then the Colts $3,500 in cash. Those would be the defenses that I recommend. So, guys, that's how I'm going to lay it out. That's the path to victory this week. 100% going to do better than we did last week, and we'll come right back here next week and get you ready for week 3. But good luck setting your lineups. You know how you can reach me. If we want to Twitter, kind of hash it out before lock, or you need some advice, holla at your boy. But outside of that, we'll talk again real soon. Peace.